Hello and welcome to Access Studio. My name is Nancy Gesimondo, and today I'll be visiting with 4 different artists who have their studios here in the Silks building in Long Island City. This building, originally known as Scalamandre Silk, was built in the early 20th century and for over 40 years was used as a production facility for wallpaper and textiles. The first artist I'll be visiting with is Sandra Mack-Valencia, a Colombian-born artist working in the genre of contemporary figurative painting. Sandra was chosen as one of the outstanding Antiochians in the world, and a documentary was made about her work. The lush landscape of her native city of Medellin is often a celebrated feature in her paintings. Sandra's work conveys strong visual narratives developed by her own personal vocabulary. She combines drawing and painting with photo transfers of found images from a variety of sources. Her use of void space, contrast with fluid paint, create powerful compositions that merge reality and fantasy. Sandra has exhibited in museums and galleries in Colombia, New York, Japan, and Italy. And she is represented by the Arte Gallery in San Antonio, Texas. Hey Sandra,
Nancy.
how are you
Good.
today?
How are you? Welcome to my studio.
Thank you.
I'm very flattered that you are giving me this opportunity to share what I love doing with your audience.
I can see you've been really busy. This is beautiful.
Oh, thank you so much. I actually set up the wall with 2 of my latest series just to give you a little insight of what they are about and what is keeping me busy.
I love to talk about this, and I could see like there's such beautiful colors. And what was the motivation for these scenes?
I call it like the group scenes because they're not really portraits. It's about being together. It was very weird because I've been working on this, and then we went to the quarantine, and when I came back and I look at the work, it just looks so far removed from reality. It made me think a lot of things, like how something that looks so familiar, then it became so odd. What inspired me was, you know, I love flea markets. I know you do too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of the crazy people looking through the old photographs, and I collect a lot of black and white in particular. Let me show you first, like, these have not worked yet, but I bought an entire I'm that crazy. Like, I bought an entire photo album of somebody's wedding.
Wow.
I have no idea who these people are.
Oh my gosh.
But it's just like some of them are so precious. I don't know what's going to happen, but I just had to have it, you know.
Yeah.
And
That's so cool.
Some of the photos I know will become part of work. Some might not. I don't know when they will become part of a work. Maybe in years.
It's so charming.
Yeah, but anyway, this will give you a clearer example of how some of my work develops. Like, I found this photograph in a flea market, and I was very drawn to it. I thought it was very, I don't know, it captivated me. The way they're posing, looking at the camera, the whole thing really caught my eye. So I put it away in a file drawer for months. And then one day I decided I wanted to work with it. And it became this work.
You use a lot of pattern. Are the patterns like native of vintage Colombian textiles, or are they just inventions of your own?
They come from different sources. Some are from fashion, from wallpapers. Some, like this pattern of the floor here, they are from floors in Colombia, or even like from tablecloths from Colombia. I love patterns. I just feel like very visually attracted to them.
And tell me about this series. This is beautiful. I saw you posted this one on Instagram recently.
There is a working title for the series. I call it The Dormant Obsessions. So it's like all those obsessions that needed a trigger to wake up. This is very, very, very new. So I am scheduled for a solo show in August. I proposed for the series the idea of the things that we allowed ourselves to do to keep ourselves happy during the quarantine.
So can you describe the process of how you begin a piece like this?
I do love contrast, so I do love pouring ink, and what I do is I just spill and let it be and see. I do have an idea of the colors that I want. You know, I see what colors could work well together. So color composition I do control, and the ink does what it decides to do, and I let it dry, and then when I'm back I just work around the spill. And I make it work into what I wanted to transform. I usually do start with the form, like with a photo transfer, then you do the spill, then maybe you retouch a little bit the photo transfer, and then you need more spill. So it's kind of, there is no order. I cannot really tell you these are the steps.
Right.
Because it changes. It changes on each piece.
Well, thank you so much. This was such a treat to see this beautiful work and to learn more about your process. I wish you the best of luck at the Unarte Gallery. I'm sure you'll be a huge success as always.
You.
So thank you so much, Sandra.
Oh, thank you, Nancy.
Tina Glavan is a Croatian-American artist working in encaustic, an ancient medium utilizing melted beeswax and crystallized tree sap. She pigments the molten wax with alcohol inks, watercolor, pan pastels, and graphite. Her current body of work is a series of experimental, process-driven studies on wood panels that reference nature's elements. Through the development of techniques unique to encaustics, she engages in a process of discovery and allows the images to reveal themselves. A palette of valued hues elicit ethereal, dreamlike images that emerge from deepest memories. She is less driven by the desire to create the image or composition of form at the outset. Rather, it is the surfacing of emotion as it becomes visible that drives her work. Presently, Tina is exploring the process of creating three-dimensional encaustic vessels, as encaustic can also be sculpted. Hey Tina, how are you?
Good, Nancy. Good to see you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me. So I have to admit, I'm really not familiar with encaustic. What drew you to this medium?
What drew me to it is the texture it evokes. It can be transparent, it can look flowy. I like to experiment. I like to mix things together, see what happens with different mediums and how they react. And encaustic is a medium that you can do a lot with, and you can play around with it and come up with all different types of results. And so depending upon my mood, it suits it very well.
And it looks so beautiful, the whole palette of colors here with the brushes sort of stuck in there. Can you explain how you work with these materials?
Encaustic is melted beeswax with damar resin, which is a crystallized tree sap. And the resin is what hardens the encaustic, the beeswax. And basically, you can color it by adding dried pigments.
Can you see that? That's such a beautiful, look at this rich, delicious, pure pigment.
And I mean,
oh wow.
Depending upon how much pigment you add,
the more saturated the color.
Exactly. I've experimented by using alcohol inks because it makes it more transparent. The medium also comes pre-colored.
So that's a mix of the beeswax with the resin already and the pigment?
Yes.
Okay.
You can even use watercolor, oil paint.
Really?
But you have to let the oil paint sit so the oil kind of gets separated from it, but then you can use that pigment.
Huh. And what are these beautiful objects?
This is my newest obsession. I branched out to encaustic sculptures, and it's made by taking a water balloon and dipping it into wax and then letting it cool and then removing the balloon, and you end up with a vessel.
Wow.
So you start off with the form and then you add more layers of wax to it, which is what I started doing here. So I'm applying encaustic on the, what you call the exterior, and then the interior, and very carefully with the pen heat gun, you fuse
Wow.
the wax. And here we have some finished pieces.
Oh, how beautiful.
Where the insides are dusted with mica.
Wow, what beautiful texture. That's awesome. So one is like matte and thick, and then this one's sort of shinier and a little smoother. But
Yeah, again, with encaustic, depending upon the technique you use, you can have it, like I said, kind of rough looking, and it builds upon itself, or you can make it smooth.
And I notice you use some of these same techniques in the two-dimensional work, which there's some more watery, translucent, and more of a buildup.
Because of the medium itself, which I find that it flows, water seems to be a theme. And then there's the fire, because when you're applying the encaustic onto the board, you have to fuse each layer by torching it. You can pour the wax onto the board, or you brush it on. And what the fusing does is, because you're working in layers and you're adding layer upon layer of the wax, when you fuse it, you're fusing it into the bottom layer so that it won't chip off.
Oh, I see.
The more you fuse, the more it becomes liquefied.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, Tina. Thank you so much for having me in your studio today.
Well, thanks for coming by and being interested in my work.
Joachim Marx is a painter from Cologne, Germany. He has maintained an active studio practice in Long Island City for over 10 years. Over the years, he has created many different series, including various types of still life paintings. He mostly paints figurative work in varying degrees of abstraction in undefined spaces. In 1991, he obtained a master's in fine art from the New York Academy of Art. Joachim has exhibited in commercial galleries and museums in the US as well as in Germany. In 2020, he was awarded a grant from the Queen's Council on the Arts for the production of new work inspired by the sight of badly damaged cars seen outside the nearby auto body shops by his studio. Hi, Joachim. Thank you for having me in your studio today.
Hi, Nancy. So nice you coming.
Thank you. What a beautiful new space you have.
Yeah, I just moved in here. It actually looks like I haven't done any work in here yet, and that is absolutely true.
Tell me more about the exhibition that you're having for the Granted show.
The new works grant by the Queen's Council on the Arts, it involves having shows at 2 of the auto body workshops. The show is going to go on until June 30th. And it's nice because it brings out the work into the community that had inspired me to, the sites outside was what inspired me to do the work in the first place, and it brings it back into the community. We share this neighborhood with all the auto body workshops, and so it's nice to reach another audience too. So this is a series of car crash paintings and photographs. When I saw particularly two cars that were like really, really bad, I just went and I took pictures of it with my cell phone just. And there was one car that had actually obviously hit a tree, and you could still see the wood inside the wheel. And I realized that there is like really interesting views in there. So kind of interesting compositions that you can see in there, and they're kind of pleasing, which was such a contradiction. And it became pretty abstract. This is one of a straight-on photograph of a car. And then there is one here where I started to manipulate the image in Photoshop. And in another step, I actually first started painting them. So some of the paintings are pretty straightforward still, and you can recognize what it was, and some are pretty abstract. It gets to this point where you can't make out what it is, but that painting adds another layer of abstraction. So I was fascinated by that.
These images on the wall are photographs that you've manipulated in Photoshop with color and then printed on acrylic of some sort?
These are a combination of the photographs and of my paintings. So I paint these figurative paintings. That is one of my main series of work. And this is a photograph and a photograph of my painting, and I combine them. Brings the figure back into that, or the human back into the car crash. That's not what I like better. I like the change of it, you know. I like to paint and I like to do work too, and I like that I have the option to do both. When I was studying, I really liked the life drawing classes. And I liked about it that there's a right and a wrong, and that is how you do it with the figure. It's either the articulation of the shoulders right or it's not, you know.
Precision. I like precision too. Can you talk about that painting a little bit? Because this is very different, because it's much more realistic.
It's a portrait. I did it for a competition. It's a friend of mine, and he's a magician. He traveled around the world finding magic tricks. One of the tricks he actually then also performed, the bullet catch. And he is supposed to catch the bullet with his teeth. He got hurt, and he got hit in the chest, not by the bullet, but by a piece of glass. That's what that is. That painting is about.
What inspired you to create this series?
Actually, I had a studio mate for a long time, and he painted portraits of bagels. He would buy bagels and actually portrait them exactly, and I thought there should be coffee going. So that was maybe 7-8 years ago. They are pretty simple. Some of them are kind of minimalistic, some are kind of funny. They are all painted with coffee as a material. So I always use coffee. Like this is like a coffee used as a pigment.
They're so beautiful.
Since the sun is shining on here so nicely right now, these ones are painted on glass. Here there's a glass frame, and the figure pretty abstracted, just to, you know, nicely moving outline is on the glass, on the inside of the glass, and it throws a shadow on the surface of the painting inside.
Wow, this was so cool. Thank you so much for having me in your studio today.
Well, thank you so much.
Caroline Golden is a collage and assemblage artist. Her images are laced with memory and shadow. Using sources such as antique books and vintage ephemera, as well as other finds, both natural and manufactured. All of the imagery in her work is meticulously cut from original source material, with hand-painted edges and precisely layering and often lifting the images off the flat surface to create a dimensional narrative. She creates both 2- and 3-dimensional work that recalls an enchanted elsewhere, a place of both recollection and possibility. Her miniature constructions, comprised of hand-fabricated and found materials such as ceramic tiles and wallpaper, explore the myths of iconic characters and the fables they are trapped within. Hi, Caroline. Thank you for having me in your studio today.
Hi, Nancy. Welcome.
Thank you. It's so beautiful in here.
Thank you. This is one of my absolute favorite studios that I've had to work in here at the Silks building. I just love the space and the light. I'm a collage and assemblage artist, and the assemblage part came in when my collages started getting more and more dimensional. So it's great that we're starting here, because these are collages that basically just leapt up off the page. You know, my work has really been inspired by Alice in Wonderland and fairy tales, especially the original texts. And I remember as a kid reading the fairy tales, and what was so wonderful was that enchanted elsewhere, the land that was neither here nor there. And as a kid, I wanted to just go through the page and find that place. So these are based on fairy tales, and what I created was miniature stages that would let the viewer come in and take a look around. So this piece this is called Hinterland, and this was the first piece I did in this series, and it's a little bit of a haunted house, but I kind of like to think of it also as sort of an abandoned tower at a fairy tale castle. One of the things I did when I created this was I put a mirror in there so that when you walk past it, it gives the illusion of another room. So you don't see your reflection in it, but you see the reflection of this box, and that just thrilled me. And so each of these boxes has a carefully placed mirror. I learned how to take paper and actually make it look like wood shingles. So all these shingles are paper.
Wow.
I chose not to light them electrically because I didn't want a cord attached.
Sure.
So it's the natural light gives them as the light changes during the course of the day.
That's incredible. These are just spectacular. I really love the use of materiality and imagination. It's just in a class of its own. It's spectacular. So tell me more about what you have on the walls here in the way of two-dimensional collage.
So, well, these collages here are very typical. This to date is the largest collage I've ever done. And this is called Beast of Burden. And this, everything that are in my collages are all found material. I do not use the computer for anything. So this piece was quite the construction. I have all these separate elements here, and then holding it all together, the wood is from a fan that was my grandmother's. So I have a lot of fun mixing, old imagery. To me, it's like putting together a large puzzle, and I get to pick out the puzzle pieces.
Right. It's so incredibly complex and interesting and inventive.
Craft is very important to me, and I want people to go into my work. So during this past year, after being under lockdown, again, the nod towards fairy tales, when I come in here and I start working on things, often I don't have a set idea of what I want to do. I just start playing around with images. I mean, this table ends up being like an archaeological dig at some point. There's just layers and layers and layers of stuff. These, I tried to impart a great deal of humor, but these were basically from our last year, calling them something in the air, because as the year went on, it wasn't just COVID-19, it was all the political rhetoric, it was all the systemic racism, it was all the things that made me horrified. I used a little painter's tool to make all these dots, and all these faces are taken from magazines from the 40s and 50s of all children's heads.
So you photograph those paintings, and these are on what kind of paper to get them to be so graphite, the color of graphite?
So those are actually cut from an old book. That was a book that was printed in the 1920s. Oh. So I actually cut up the book, which I cringe when I hear those words come from my mouth, because I was taught to really respect books, but I rescue them from flea markets, from trash bins, things that are disintegrating. I salvage them. I want so then it's not just the image that you're seeing, but it's also all the hands that held that book.
Thank you so much for having me in today.
Thank you so much, Nancy.
So
this
cool.
was so wonderful to share what happens in here.
Thank you for tuning in to Access Studio today. I hope you enjoyed this episode and that you'll tune in next time. If you wish to purchase any of the artwork shown in this video, please look at the closing credits for the artist's contact information. You may also visit past episodes of Access Studio on the YouTube channel, where you can subscribe to the channel and leave a comment for the artist. Thanks for watching!